Hello everybody and welcome back. We are going to be thinking this afternoon in geography all about our brand new topic. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times already, I've kind of alluded to the fact that our topic for this half term is food journeys and fair trade. Here is a little banner I made, lovely, yeah. So we're going to be thinking about what all of these different things mean. Now, you might have a little knowledge on some of these things already, maybe some of these words are familiar to you, maybe actually you're not so sure what some of these things mean. Either of those things is okay. But we're going to hopefully fill you in a little bit more on some of this today, and we're going to kind of start delving into this topic. So my first question for you, where does our food come from? Pause the video and have a bit of a conversation at home. Where does our food come from? I wonder how many of you, when you first started thinking about this, came up with an answer like this. It's not a silly thing to say. Don't worry if you said Sainsbury's or Tesco or Aldi or anything like that. It's not a silly answer at all. But it's not what I'm thinking of at the moment. I want to actually think about where the food on those shelves came from. So, where does the food that's stocked in Sainsbury's come from? Where did they get it? Now, a lot of our food, we kind of know, we've got a good idea where some of our food comes from. So I bet actually if I asked you where do eggs come from, you probably have a decent idea. You could say, yeah, I know that chickens and hens and things lay eggs. So hens often live in farms and barns and they lay eggs and the farmers collect them. So we know all about that. So if you like making, for example, cakes or Yorkshire puddings, anything like that, your eggs that you use to make that will come from hens or farmers. So some things we can easily identify. Milk's another one. I think we can probably have a good say at where milk comes from, can't we? Milk, of course, comes from cows, and they often live on dairy farms, and the farmers will milk those cows, and then that milk will be packaged up or sort of help produced into milk and things like that. Now, getting a little bit trickier now, what about bread? Where does bread come from? Bread is made from wheat. So farmers grow wheat in their fields, and then they harvest all of that wheat, and then that can get milled into grain, and then that can get turned into flour, and then flour is the main ingredient for bread. What about chips then? Oh, they look tasty, don't they? Where do chips come from? Lots of you said potatoes. You're right. What about the potatoes themselves? Where do the potatoes come from? Well, farmers grow potatoes in their fields. Potatoes grow underground, and then in the summer, the farmers dig the potatoes up and store them in big sacks. And we can cook those potatoes in all sorts of different ways: roast potatoes, jacket potatoes, mashed potatoes, and yes, chips. Fruit, again, I think this is one we've probably got a decent idea about this, haven't we? We can probably say, aha, yes, I know where fruit comes from. Fruit grows on trees, bushes, plants, things like that. And then often farmers and growers and things will take those off, and then they're ready for us to eat. Many fruits can be grown in the UK. And it's a similar story for vegetables, isn't it? Many vegetables grow above ground, some do grow underground. Potatoes, beetroots, carrots, and turnips, for example, all grow underground. Beans, cabbages, lettuce, cauliflower, and broccoli all grow above ground, but these are all things that can be grown. So we talked about some of these things, and hopefully you've got a bit of a sense, of course, that our food is often sort of grown or made by farmers. Does all of our food come from this country? Again, pause the video and just have a quick chat about that. Does all of our food come from this country? Well, the answer to that is no. People from all over the world make their money from growing and selling food. And lots of food is then sent overseas to other countries. And here in the UK, we export a lot of food grown here to other countries. And we also import lots of the food grown and made elsewhere to our country. Now, you might have been a bit unfamiliar with these two words, exports and imports. If you export something, you send it to a different country. And if you import something, it's sent from another country to you. So here in the UK, we send some of our food elsewhere, and we also buy some food in from other countries. So there's some exports, that's things being sent away, and some imports, that's things being sent in. I actually had a look on our government website, and here is a graph from gov.uk. It says this is where all of the food consumed in the UK, this is the most recent chart I had up there in 2019, where does our food come from? And just over half comes from right here in the UK. About a quarter is from other countries in the EU. And the remaining quarter is from other parts of the world. So that's Africa, America, Asia, all sorts of other parts of the world we get a little bit of our food from. Now, I really like this quote. This is from a man called Martin Luther King. And you might remember, actually, we did spend about 10 minutes or so talking about him earlier in the year. We watched a quick video of him. Here's not his most famous quote, but it's I think it's a really good one for today. Before you finish eating breakfast this morning, you've depended on more than half the world. Let's just have a think about what he means by that. Before you finish eating breakfast this morning, you've depended on more than half the world. And I think what he means is what you had for breakfast today may well have actually come from all sorts of different places, not just our own country. So, just as a bit of an example for this, maybe you had some of these things for your breakfast today or at some point today. If you've had some bananas, they might have come from a different part of the world, maybe Costa Rica. It's possibly one more for mums and dads, but if someone at the breakfast table this morning had coffee, that was grown elsewhere. Sugar, likewise. If you've had currants, raisins, things like that. Even actually, if you had a cotton cloth table mat, that would have been from a different country as well. So all sorts of different parts of our foods and our meals often come from different countries. Now, why do we do that? Why do we get our food from other countries? It's a bit a good question. You might well be thinking, well, why don't we just grow it all here? Wouldn't that be much easier and simpler? Have a think for yourself. Why do you think we get our food from other countries? Can you pause the video here and have a conversation about that? Why do you think we get our food from other countries? So we've seen already then about 45% of our food, so that's just under half of our food in the UK, comes from other countries. Why is that? Well, of course, there's lots and lots of different reasons. I've just got a few of them here. It might be that that food is out of season, which means that we can grow it at some times here, but not at others. So an example of that is strawberries. Here in the UK, we can grow strawberries no problem at all during the summer, but in the winter, it's much harder because it needs a certain sort of temperature and climate to grow. So in the UK, if you buy strawberries in the summer or shortly after the summer, chances are they were grown here in the UK. If you buy your strawberries in the winter, they were probably actually grown elsewhere. Sometimes we get our food from other countries because it can be of better quality. One big reason, this is one we'll probably come back to at some point during our topic, we actually need more food than we make here in the UK. That's a really important reason that we get some of our food from elsewhere. Here's another important reason. We don't actually have the right climate needed to grow some foods. So there's a picture there of a banana tree, and I bet very few of us, if any, have ever actually seen a banana tree in real life before. We don't really get them in the UK. And it's because bananas, in order for them to grow successfully, they need a really tropical climate, a really hot climate where it's sort of very, very hot all the time. And of course, here in the UK, we can't guarantee that. So bananas don't really grow here in the UK at all. Maybe if you've got a sort of very specialist thing, like if you've got a greenhouse and some very particular conditions, it's not impossible, but it's very, very rare. And so it makes much more sense for us to import them or to buy them in from other countries. And the last reason, it can be cheaper. Now that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you might be thinking, well, how on earth can it be cheaper to get all of this food shipped in from other countries? They've got to drive it here maybe, or they've got to take it in over a boat. And won't that be really expensive? Well, that's something we're going to be thinking about now. In some parts of the world, people who grow food are not paid a fair price for what they produce. And this can be one of the reasons why food is cheaper to import from other countries. And if people aren't paid a fair price for their food, they won't have enough money for food, schooling, medicine, or clothing. And sadly, it is the case that in some parts of the world, people aren't paid a fair price for what they're doing. And so, this organisation are really important. Fair Trade are an organisation who are determined to make sure that workers get a fair deal for the food that they make. So Fair Trade work with more than 1 million farmers from 74 different countries. And when you see this logo on some foods, particularly things like bananas, chocolate, coffee, sugar often, it means the workers involved were paid a fair price. And that's really important. So when you buy Fair Trade, there's all sorts of benefits. When you buy Fair Trade, the workers receive better prices for the crops, and so the people involved can live better lives. They can go to school, they can get the medicines they need, things like that. It also means the workers have better working conditions. So it might mean, for example, that they're not forced to work very, very long hours. It also means Fair Trade actually not only pay a fair price for food, they actually pay a little bit above the market value. And that extra money goes into projects that help the local communities. It might help them to get bicycles to get to work, or to build wells to get fresh drinking water. Fair Trade help people all around the world, particularly places where they don't have as much money as we do here, and they help them to live better lives. But even though this sounds great and it sounds like a no-brainer, only around 1 in 3 bananas sold in the UK are Fair Trade. Now, that's not many, is it? That means the majority of bananas sold in our country don't have that Fair Trade sticker on them, and that means the worker that made that banana wasn't necessarily paid a fair price for it. The cost of a banana in the UK has actually fallen in the UK for the last 10 years. The average price 10 years ago was 18p, and the average price of a banana now is 11p. Now you might be thinking, great, we've saved 7p a banana, but the reason that those bananas are cheaper is because the workers may not have been paid a fair price for their food. So the result is that for farmers and workers in countries like Colombia and the Dominican Republic, growing bananas for a living is becoming unsustainable. The people there can't afford to keep doing those jobs. So Fair Trade are an organisation that want to change this, and they want to make sure that farmers and workers are paid a fair price for their food. And what a coincidence, look at this, it's almost like I've planned it. Fair Trade Fortnight happens every year, and the idea is that it's an event to raise awareness of this and to help other people to understand the importance of it. And as I say, it is Fair Trade Fortnight right now. This is obviously why our topic is for this half term. And what I'd like you to do today is I'd like you to design a poster for Fair Trade Fortnight. And I'd like you to encourage people to choose food with the Fair Trade logo on when they're shopping. Right now, as I say, only 1 in 3 bananas sold in the UK is a Fair Trade banana, so the majority are not. I'd like you to make a poster that encourages people to choose those Fair Trade bananas. And they might be paying a few pence more, but actually that money is going towards making sure it's a fair price for the workers that made them, and that's a really good thing for them and the communities that live there. So I'd like you to design a really nice poster today for Fair Trade Fortnight. You can be really creative with this. Maybe your poster is going to be in the shape of a banana. Maybe your poster is going to be entirely in yellow. It can be done however you want. Maybe you want to make one on a computer. Maybe you want to get some paints out. You can do it however you wish. But I'd love for you to make today a Fair Trade Fortnight poster and raising awareness of this really important issue and encouraging people to shop for these fair trade items. As this unit goes on, we're going to be learning lots more about this. We're going to be thinking about actually how long a journey some of our food has been on to get to us. That's the food journeys bit. We'll be thinking about food miles, so which foods are very, very close to us, which are further away. And we'll also be thinking a lot about the environmental impact of that. Because if things like bananas are coming from many, many, many miles away, what's the environmental cost of that? So lots to look forward to and lots we're going to learn about in this unit. I hope you enjoy making a poster today, and I'd really love to see these, please, when you come back in. If you keep it and then bring it in on March the 8th, I'd love to put some up around the classroom. So please do design your poster, make it look great, and bring it in. I would love to see it, and I'd love to put them up on display when you're back in school. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you virtually on the computer screen next Monday. Have fun, everyone. Bye.